Our trip began from Key West as we headed to the Dry Tortugas National Park. As you can see from the pictures, the waters were crystal blue turquoise, and the sun was shining. There are only two ways of reaching Fort Jefferson. One is by taking a seaplane from Key West, which takes about 45 minutes, and the other is by boat, which takes about 2.5 hours and is usually a pretty nice ride. I've traveled in the past on this boat with my family, but since I keep two boats in Key West, we chose to take our boat called the Great Escape, which is 40-foot ocean yacht, and we towed a smaller 30-foot Scarab behind us in order to conserve the fuel because there's no fuel at the fort. There's no food, there's no water, there's nothing except for bathroom services. As a matter of fact, you have to take your own garbage home. You can't leave it at the fort, which is okay, no problem at all. It was for this reason that we chose to take an additional boat that we towed so we could not lose any fuel and save it for cruising and fishing around the fort. Our plans were to anchor the ocean yacht in the calm water surrounding the fort itself and using the Scarab to cruise and fish. As you can see, the water is phenomenal. However, if you choose to take the ferry from Key West, known as the Yankee Freedom, it's quite a fast boat, faster than mine. It'll get you to Tortugas in 2.5 hours as opposed to my boat, which will get us there in about 4.5 hours, almost twice the time. As we got towards the fort and saw it from the distance, we got very excited and started taking a lot of pictures. The fort is considered to be in the Gulf of Mexico. Construction of the fort began in 1846. It took approximately 30 years using 16 million bricks to build it. It was completed in 1875. The fort was used as a prison for those who were considered deserters of the Union Army or prisoners caught from the Confederate Army. One of the most noted men there was Samuel Mott. Samuel Mott was a physician in Virginia. It was soon after John Wilkes Booth shot the president by jumping off the balcony onto the stage and broke his leg that he rode into Virginia and knocked on Samuel Mott's door and asked him to, or demanded to, have his leg fixed. Unknowing that he had shot the president, Dr. Mott fixed his leg, and it wasn't until the next morning when he talked to authorities that they realized that Sam Mott was indeed there, and I mean that John Wilkes Booth was there. Anyway, Sam Mott was eventually convicted as an actual conspirator, but I think he was probably innocent. He was sent to prison at Fort Jefferson for life after attempting to escape twice, but was caught by stowing himself away on the boats that brought supply to the fort from the mainland or Key West. He was returned to the prison. However, after the Civil War was over, he was released because he helped save many lives in the fort from the yellow fever epidemic. Now, we finally entered the fort, and we saw a lot of birds sitting on day markers. These birds are known as cormorants, but they resemble more of ducks than they do of birds. Shortly after docking the boat, we used our dinghy to make our way to the area where snorkeling is good and diving productive. This is very close to the fort. It actually touches the land the fort sits on. The old docks that are seen in the pictures go back to 1846 when the fort was built. Most of them have perished with the storms and the weather, etc., etc. And so diving there is done with cautiously so that one doesn't run into the pilings and then gets a splinter stuck in their skin. I've seen a lot of horrible infections from splinters going into people's skins uh, in the Bay of New Jersey. The fort, by the way, was known as Fort Jefferson, was named after President Thomas Jefferson. Diving around the fort, even now, one can find old relics of bricks going back to 1846 and around that time period. And as we entered the calm waters in that area, it was a good place to anchor because we would find calm waters. But where we anchor in these calm waters of the fort, it so happens that on just about every side, especially as the boat drifts from the anchor, being tied to the anchor, you could see this bird sanctuary everywhere. You could see it on the left or right, depending on how your boat is maneuvered. And therefore, we could hear the birds all day and all night. They're somewhat chaotic in the way they screech and carry on. But frankly, we didn't care and it didn't bother any of us. And we actually enjoyed knowing the fact that they were having a good time and being productive, etc., etc. As a matter of fact, birds are fishermen's best friends because when we go out fishing, we're always looking for birds flying above the water, close to the water, and diving into the water. When we see that, we recognize that they're diving for fish, for bait. And so the bait, even on the lower areas of the water, attracts bigger fish. So when we see birds diving, we usually tend to head towards these boats. The fish, this is where usually we catch a fish. Also, when one looks at the sky, many times you'll see a bird called a frigate. This frigate is a big bird, with probably about a 3-foot wide wingspan. And it hunts for prey way up in the sky. I mean, very, very far up in the sky. We also saw a lot of beautiful sunrises and sunsets from the spot we anchored. We would sit there for hours watching the action of the birds at the bird sanctuary, flying everywhere around us, behind us, looking for food. They're plentiful. After the first night, as the sun was going down, we had dinner, being a fish for the main course. And then we woke up the next day as the sun was rising and saw a huge Goliath grouper underneath our boat looking for food. So we fed him with some leftovers from the night before. Sooner thereafter, there's a bunch of noise of human civilization coming to us as seaplanes were landing between the boat and the fort, dropping off curious visitors to the fort from Key West. We got into our dinghy at that point and went to visit the fort and see what was happening and also stretch our legs. The fort's very beautiful and there's a lot of history displayed on the walls, including also old cannons laying on the floor, and so there's a lot to see there. After walking around for a while, we decided to go fishing. We dinged it back to our boat. Then we loaded up this Scarab with fishing rods and bait and tackle, and started heading out within 10 miles of the fort's ocean to try to identify fish and catch them. The day was actually very productive as we caught a bunch of yellowfin snappers, blackfin tuna, a grouper, and even a jack. So we came back with a nice bunch of fish, and we had a great dinner that night. However, we decided to do something that's a little unusual, and we knew that there was camping sites on the land where the fort is on. So we decided to go camping on the fort's
video.
Well, this is what they call blackfin tuna. He is so good tasting. We would love him. Mwah. Baby, thank you for dinner. I appreciate it very much. Bye.
Live with one person could lasso a 700-pound fish and carry him between two locations. But this girl's name is Lori. There it is. See the size of this fish? Okay, now it's my turn. I have to help, so I've got to go. Ground. The camping experience was pretty nice, and I would say we would come back in the future to do it again. We stayed at the fort for another few days, snorkeled and fished, and then headed home to Key West. The fort's quite a beautiful place, and we've been back a few times after we've discovered it. I would definitely recommend it for those who are seeking adventure. There's nothing there except for nature itself, birds and fish, and snorkeling. There's no groceries, there's no food, there's no fuel. There's some bathroom facilities, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place to be, and we can never get enough of it. So we highly recommend it.